demoed, I was making these boxes with different wood on the inside than the outside. But what I'm trying to do now is create kind of like an extra bit of wood on the outside that's from the inside that maybe I can eventually relief carve or something. But for now, it's just a ringed ring box. And this one was, I just did this Saturday as my first proof of concept. I went through the top there just a little bit, and I went through the bottom there. So just an example of if you don't take your time, things go wrong. And then this one I made yesterday, and just decided that I had to thread one. And so yeah, so just a little piece of bloodwood and wingy, and threaded. So that's it.
See what you started? What's that? See what you started?
Okay. Mine's Purple Heart and Maple. The outside, the alternating stripes are purple and maple, and then solid purple. On the inside, it's opposite. It's the inside, the solid stripes are maple, and the outsides, and then the alternating purple and maple. And I did the same thing. Went through the. I messed up. I used a Forstner bit to get out the bulk of the material. I forgot about that little point on it. So it was going to go. So I just put a new disc in the middle, in the bottom.
I was kind of intrigued by Aaron's demo, and put this under here. And my stock of dry wood is kind of limited, especially on size. And so I just grabbed what I had, and I had some of this diamond wood that I put the insert in, and I wasn't sure how that was going to work out, but it makes kind of a neat spiral effect on the inside.
Okay, so mine is it's not done yet. It took me 2 tries to do the threading today, and that got me behind the 8 ball. Basically, it's cherry on the outside. I used crabapple feathered. It's got a great feather in it. Crabapple on the inside. African blackwood as far as the threads, and then I added the top piece, which was a leftover piece of epoxy pine cone that I had done about a year ago, and so I left it. I'm going to just put a finish on it. I'll probably use the 3408, the 3804 finish on it to finish both the inside and out. So that's why I left it on there.
I'd like to. I'd like to thank Aaron, number 1, for doing the demo, and number 2, for taking the most simple wood turning project of building a box and making it the most difficult that you possibly could. That's what I ended up with, an 8-hour project that looks like it should be about a 30-minute project. But the only thing I knew the steps that Aaron had done, but as I was doing it, I never could remember any of them. So I kind of had to rethink everything that you were telling me. I anticipated this box being about half the height that it was, and I don't know where I went wrong, but had a square block that I started with and drilled holes in the center on 2 sides, and that's what allowed me to pull the inside wood to the outside on the sides, and then went through the bottom here, or actually I exposed the bottom, but I had turned it and a little chunk had coming out. And then on this side, I totally missed where I was supposed to be on the bottom, and so it's just all the inside wood, but I didn't cut holes in the bottom, so I was happy with that, and it makes a nice little pop. So.
Be pretty quick. I really thought the demo we had last week was super, so thank you again for getting into this mess. Anyway, my objective for this was to use a piece of Osage orange. I've got a bowl that I'm working on. It's 22 inches in diameter by 10 inches high, and it's going to take another month to dry. So that was a piece of that, and our objective was to use the whiter new growth on the outside so that when you put it together, you knew exactly where it would align, and so that worked out. And the trickiest part, I think, was turning the inside piece and having enough width on this groove so that when you went in, you had the inside diameter and you had the outside diameter in the top, so when you put it together, you could actually have it a lid. So anyway, I was real pleased with the spalted oak that I've been working with. Got those bases we'll talk a little bit more about, but the trick with spalted oak is it's hard and it's soft, because where it's got real oak, it's hard as the devil, and where it's spalted, it's real soft. So that's the challenge. And then just a little finial on top for old class.
Well, I think I misunderstood. They were talking about putting stuff on the inside and the outside, and all I heard was in the middle, and so I just put mine in the middle like that. It's walnut and it's dogwood. It was kind of fun. It was interesting, but
Always one in the crowd.
and it's just
Middle of the road.
lacquered. Middle of the road.
Okay. Who else have we got? Is that it? Oh. Have you got a ticket, Ann?
No. This was hard. I have walnut on the outside and elm on the inside. But for the first one, I was really pleased. I did go through, so I took out the inside, so I just have the little rim here and then the dark wood exposed. So it was challenging, but it was fun. So I will do it again. And it was great. I've watched that YouTube thing so many times, going back, watching again, go back and do it again. And I still didn't get it right, but.
Is that everybody who's brought a challenge item? Has everyone got a ticket in the bowl? All right. Now we need an impartial third party. Sue, pick out a winner. Let me tell you what the last 3 digits are supposed to be. I'll just read them off.
902. You're supposed to say 898. Anthony again?
Well, good for you, Anthony. Anthony, he needs a new tool. Congratulations, Anthony. All right. Now, there are some real interesting show and tell items here. And I mean, this spans the spectrum from paperweights, some really incredible stuff. Is this your Stuart?
Yeah, I'll
What
explain it.
happened?
Okay.
What happened?
So we all use chucks. This is a Vicmark VM 120. I had a big bowl on it, and unfortunately, I had to cut the bowl off to be able to get the wood off of the chuck, because the chuck, when I went to turn to open it up, all I heard was crackle, crackle, sounded like Rice Krispies. Which, if you look closely here, the metal on the scroll for the chuck in both locations where you turn broke off. When I asked the Vicmark people, the reps, about this, they say, "Oh yeah, that happens." Okay, and how much time do you have before you're warranted for it? A year. That's great. 6 years, no warranty. So the combination of the scroll and the pinions, and if you get a chance, if you haven't already looked at them, these are harder than this metal, which is why they break. So when you go to use your chuck and they say, you know, clamp down on it to make sure that your wood stays in there, if you hear it go crunch, crunch, you knew you clamped a little too much. And the other part about this is I learned of the 3 places that carry Vicmark chucks, which is Craft Supply, Woodworkers Emporium in Las Vegas, and Packard, that there's a 50% difference in the cost of the items. You can get these parts from Vicmark through them. So this little item, if you got it through Woodworkers Emporium, was $22 each. There's 2 of them. If you get it through Packard, it's $34 each, plus shipping. If you go to get this one, this is $90 through Craft Supply, or $87 from Woodworkers Emporium. Packard was $112. So if you go to buy things that are, you know, parts, you're just sort of at the whim of the manufacturer. And they don't always have them in stock.
And did you have to buy the screw part, or could you just gotten the gear?
No, I got the gear, which is the scroll.
Yeah.
I got this, but the teeth on these are mangled as well.
Oh, okay.
So you have to get those as well. The other thing that Rick and I actually talked about is, how often do you actually clean your own chuck? And do you know how to take it apart? Well, you're supposed to clean them when they get dirty. Well, they get dirty after one use. Blow them out. Yeah, that's great. And then you just blew stuff into it. So you're supposed to actually do it. They recommend it every 6 months. The manufacturer does.
Are you supposed to put like new grease in them?
New grease in them. And I asked what kind of grease you use, and you use bearing oil or bearing grease. Other people have used things like silicone that you can use on your bicycle gears. Liquid Wrench has 5 different oil and lubricants that you can use from dry all the way through an oil. But they recommend like a packing grease. I have another one of these that I have had not as long, and when I took off the back to look and see, this one was almost like this, but my other one has got pink oil and packing grease in every one of these things. So was it because of not having the grease in there that it broke? They didn't think so. Vicmark didn't think so. So, at any rate, you might go home and take yours apart. There's lots of good YouTube videos on how to do it or undo it.
Got to go to Italy this April. And the highlight of my trip was bringing back a piece of alabaster that we visited in Volterra. I got to go to this workshop, and Giorgio showed me how to turn alabaster. And so anyway, he sold me this small little piece of alabaster, and I didn't want to waste any of it, so I put a block on this end and turned the outside shape, and then I really wanted to do Kevin's technique where it was a segmented rim, and I just didn't get around to it, so I decided to just do an epoxy pour, and so basically just poured in the bottom of a cottage cheese container, stuck the alabaster in there, and it worked out great. Basically, bowl gouge and a round scraper is all that it took. I ended up turning it about a 1/4 inch thick. Now there's 4 different kinds of alabaster, and I can tell you that I think this is a Scaglione, a translucent alabaster. There's the white opaque alabaster. There's the alabaster characterized with dark veins and something else, and then there's the alabaster that's in Colorado that has red and browns due to a presence of iron and magnesium oxides, but it's very soft. So it was actually fun to turn. Well, it's stone. I mean, yeah.
Well, I decided to go to the Rocky Mountain Symposium. So I was talking to my brother-in-law, and he's like, well, why don't you stay a couple extra days, and we'll get a guide, and we'll go fly fishing. And my brain started working from there, and I don't know what happened. My kids kept coming downstairs, are you still working? What the hell is that? I said, hey, I can. There's nobody big enough to stop me, so I'm doing it. So this is my version of the Prince Fly. With this? No, yes, I caught plenty of fish.
This is a piece that started out as a disaster. It was a piece of silver maple burl that was turned into a vessel with a fairly small opening. Had a pith in the side of it. When it dried, it started getting a lateral crack going both ways, and I didn't see any good way to salvage it, so I started playing with what I could do on the shape and cut it open, and I kind of liked the shape of it. But because it had a small opening, I hadn't gone to much trouble to get it smooth on the inside, let alone sanded it. And I found that it was pretty well impossible to sand the whole inside because of getting under here, because I no longer had a tenon on it. And I thought it'd be nice to be able to show the crotch, on the inside as well. And so when that failed, I decided I needed to do something else to at least disguise the poor interior on it. So the birch bark thing is just paint and some epoxy to make the little wart things that show up on the sides of birch bark.
Bought a piece of elm back at the auction one time, and it had a little bit of a taper to it, so I kind of saw the shape that I was going for was going to V a little bit, and started turning a box, which this is 2 pieces. It is a box. Hid the seam initially with a couple of really small beads using a beading tool, and then Mike Erickson was here. I don't think he's here tonight, and he said, why don't you burn those in? I did. I really liked it. Hid the line, it hid the seam really well, and it gave it a nice dark contrast. On the top, though, I'm looking at it, and I'm kind of got a box in mind, and then I'm looking at it, and it's like, this is a vase. So I kind of played with the mouth of the vase, and then everything up above that mouth was just basically my tenon and what I'd connected to. So I had the idea of trying to do a little carving and kind of using the vessel of illusion technique that Trent Bosch had shown a few years ago in our video demo. Created 2 different directions in the piece that was left, knowing the whole time that, well, if it messes up, I can just chop that off and it's still a nice vase. So I ended up keeping it. It looked close enough to what I wanted that I decided not to chop it off and put a little color into it, polished it up, and it's kind of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking about different ways to make scoops. This is something that I learned from Soren Berger. It would have been the late 90s, but I don't remember exactly when. And he made his a little closer to what was it Ali Evisara made, where it just offsets on one end. When he was here, he made one. It's the only wood turning class I ever took. Soren Berger was here. He was out at Sharp Tools, and so I didn't want to do that. That wasn't enough, and so I decided I was going to offset both of them and create this tighter bend. And I don't know if you guys have ever met me, but it wasn't quite working right. And so I just kept pressing it harder and harder, and eventually it blew up, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore. But, I mean, they're kind of fun. This is, I made this one about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 10 years, I don't remember. But this was the idea I had then. It's turned sort of similarly, but it requires too much handwork. I didn't want to do that. And so this is the version that has almost no handwork in it. And I think it looks okay. He used on second thought, let's see, I bought nylon. This is the chuck that you use to hold the piece. Oh, I didn't bring that one. The one that was over there. When I first started out, I used a cup chuck. And the problem with the cup chuck is, well, these have been turned this way, and so they are round. They are not necessarily round this way. That's just how close you can make it. And so a cup chuck doesn't hold that very well, and it's easy to knock them loose. And so I had another one I was looking for, and I meant to bring. It's made out of walnut, and it's got this very black line burned into it where it came out of the chuck and latched onto the tool rest, and the lathe kept going, and smoke and everything. And so this is definitely much better in hanging on to things. I tried some tube, like not surgical tubing, something a little stiffer than that. And I had varying amounts of success with that. All of them except, well, one of those over there. All of them except one of those. I used the pin jaws for the stronghold. They have the real tall jaws, and I put the tubing on that, and it held it quite well. I actually own a pair of tower jaws, so the jaws are that tall, and this fits in there very well. Then it leaves room for the vessel to stick out through the bottom. And so this is the one. You see this one, I haven't finished the bottom on it, and that's because you can see light through it. And so I consider that not a functional scoop. This is the same. I turned 3 or 4, well, I turned 4 of these actually, and they're made out of ash. I just wanted to see how thin I could make them. I used light. You put light behind the bowl, and then you can, as you turn, you can see the light shine through, and it tells you when it's the same thickness. And so I made 4, and I don't know if you can see that. 3 of them worked. Yeah, most of the time. Somebody asked me to make a box that looked like a bottle that he could keep valuables in. So it was supposed to be sneaky. And so I've had this wine bottle, and I use it as a pattern. This is Cocobolo. I asked him if he wanted a cork in it or not. So he said he wants a cork in it. And it's supposed to be, there we go, nice and sneaky. So I used Sean's texturing tool. Holy shit. Oh. Shh. Uh-huh. And, I mean, it wasn't too bad of a thing to make, except that you're hanging onto it with a chuck here, and that's hanging out, and then you have to hollow it. That was kind of a problem. I didn't bother to sand the inside. I think I will before he picks it up. Oh, yeah.
Basically, my sergeant at arms here. The issue I wanted to kind of point out was that I haven't done very much deep turning at all. So we started out with a study and form, and I said, well, you know, things that are shaped somewhat like this would be kind of neat to do in various sizes. And this all comes from the same tree. This is a spalted oak tree, oak tree that has been spalted. And they are sanded inside and to the bottom. And so we talk about things you need to do, or that I thought we needed to do, was to create an adequate leverage scraper. And so this is a grade 8 bolt welded to a piece of plain steel and inch rods. And I don't endorse or recommend this approach at all. I'll take no liability on here, but you know, it worked. And so grade 8 bolt, I was using a cutter and cut out a square chunk, and then sharpened it on the side on the CBN wheel, and it lasts maybe 5 minutes of cutting at the most, and you get to do it again. So the issue is this is turned 17.5 inches to the bottom, and so you are out here this far, and you need to have some leverage. Well, it probably could have been a foot longer, but I'm out of space. And the long story of it short is that, okay, that'll get you your scraping on the side. Then how do you do to sand it? Well, I bought a 4-foot 7/16 inch rod, threaded the ends for a 7/16 nut, and threaded that on, and then drilled through and tapped the nut, which gives you a means to drill out a 1/4 inch hole, so you can make a 24-inch extension with which you can turn a 3-inch side sander or a regular, buffing wheel like this at the end. Only thing is you need to wear gloves when you're spinning it because it'll get a little warm.
So how did you get that? How'd you get that drill motor in there?
That's why you use the extension. I tried that; it didn't work. The reason I brought this along, this is my favorite tool of the day. It's a rare thing. You won't find it in the store, any of the Milwaukee stores. It has a 8,000 speed sander or 2,800 speed. So it's a 2-speed motor. It is brushed, so it means you probably need to blow it out. It's about $135 as cheap you can get it. But a company in Oklahoma City makes a miniature arbor adapter for it, and they are metric thread. They're a 9mm thread to a a 7mm, I guess, and it's just about a ½ inch long. So this arbor replaces the drive mechanism, but it has 1/8 inch and a 1/4 inch arbor in it, so you can use Dremel tools. And so I found it to be just the neatest thing. And with 3 batteries and a charger, you can keep yourself occupied for 5 or 6 hours, and then you run out. So I really like it. So the long story short of getting a nice smooth finish on this, this is tung oil finished. When I started, because it was spalted, I used a product called PC Solidify, or PC Concrete. Anyway, Westlake carries it, and I put that on as the spalting. So what that does is firm up the spalted part so that you get something of consistency. And the reason that that exists is as you're turning, you have this tool in here, and the oak is hard, the spalting is not as hard. So you end up, I don't care which tool you're using, it goes oval. So the way around that is you put your tool rest out here with a pin in it, so that when this tool goes up against it, you have leverage to control where the tip is going, right? And of course, you're hoping you don't get a catch to get interested. So the problem too is that as that's spinning, this you can, by keeping leverage against it and also keeping it flat, slightly above center, you're able to actually turn a round hole in the middle of it. And I defy anybody to take a mixed hardness and keep it round with a regular tool. If you can do that, you've got it down. So this is how I solved that.
That's incredible.
Need help?
Yeah, please.
And you didn't have a catch.
By the way, this one blew up entirely, and because it's spalted, you can't tell it. You got to see it. Oh, well. Thank you. So it was a lot of fun.
Hello. All right. Good evening. I did some colored resin pours. This here is I call Bumblebee. This is black and yellow. It's a 2-color pour. This is called Alumilite. So in 7 minutes, you can put it into a pressure pot, and it cures within an hour or 2. Some pins I made are some segmented pins. This one here is made out of wood from leftover from a jewelry box top with holly, cherry, and black veneers. The nice thing about these segmented pins on the resin is you can make your own molds. That is, P-Town Stubbies sells these molds for Gigi style, they call them. You pour your resin in the mold, and in 2 hours, or actually 4 hours, you can pull this out, and you have a skeleton. From that skeleton, you can pour different colors that you want for your pin. So it's kind of fun to do that, and you can create as many of these as you want. I did try their orange into it, and it busted both my molds. The orange pigment from Alumilite, it just tore them up. I don't know why, and they turned like a light blue. So I don't use orange anymore. So any questions? No? All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Well, when you pour this, you get like 5 7/8 inch blanks, and these are good for rollerball pins and fountain pins. And this size here is you can get 6 3/4 inch out of one pouring. So how much time does it take for it to set up? The fast only takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, which is in the pressure pot, and the slow takes 3 to 4 hours. So, and then you can start cutting and turning. I've seen people turn the fast within 30, 40 minutes, and I thought that was crazy. But I usually wait at least an hour or 2 in the pressure pot. So
are you selling those blanks or anything?
Oh, of course, everything's for sale. No, I do sell them. I've sold them some craft shows and stuff. I sell them for $8 a piece, 2 for $15, or 3 for $20. So if anyone's interested, I got my business cards there, and you can contact me. So I don't know what the rules and policies here are there at the guild. But I do have some business cards if you're interested. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
I thought I'd throw this in. I haven't field tested this yet, but somebody at one of the booths at SWAT had a lighted bar that would go. Does Cindy have it? Okay. It went on the front of your tool rest. Yeah, so that when your tool rest is across there, it illuminates in the inside of the bowl or whatever, so you don't have to worry about getting a light faced where you want it. But I did some searching on Amazon trying to find these strip lights, and they were all too long, and so I kept looking, and I found that these are made for a sewing machine, to go up underneath and illuminate a sewing machine. And the thing that was kind of nice about this is it said in the instructions that you can cut it off to whatever length you want in between the diodes. So if you're only needing 4 inches of it, in a particular place or something. But I'm going to attach it to just a little metal strip with a couple of magnets, I think, where I can put it on a couple of the different tool rests. So I'll let you know how it works.
Now, where'd you find that?
$8 on Amazon. Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called a
Okay, we got any other show and tell items? Talk about a variety of stuff here. I mean, that's really incredible. Alabaster and flies, lights, you name it. Okay. Don't forget the meeting next month, December 9th, is going to be our holiday party. So